Hello all you wonderful people, my name is Colby Course and this is Colby Course. Today we are going to be covering my overall life history with some of the influences that made me who I am today. Back in the 1870s, Canada started its campaign to advertise free land. This campaign reached Ukraine where my great-great-great-grandparents were living at the time, and well, it looked amazing as, who wouldn't want free land? So doing what anybody would do with the opportunity of being your own boss instead of being a serf, he paid up the money to travel to London using the modern technology of the railway. Soon after arriving, he was able to venture the long boat ride and ultimately claimed his free land and ended up in Manitoba. Now on the other side of the family, their journey to Canada was a little bit more difficult. Back in Ireland in the 1840s, life was faced with disease, famine, and poverty. These issues were caused by an event called the Great Famine, or otherwise known as the Potato Famine. The potato famine was caused by a potato blight, which infected crops across Britain in the 1840s. This blight affected millions of people living in Ireland like my ancestors, and in total caused over 1 million deaths. After learning the opportunities Canada presented, my ancestors made a decision I am very thankful for. They packed up their bags and emigrated to Canada, which for obvious reasons showed a much more promising life than the potato famine. Alright, now that they made it to Canada, both sides of the family settled down in the suburbs. On the potato famine side, they arrived in Canada a while before the ones from Ukraine, so as many of the other settlers did, they used the land to their advantage and started farming. Now in some parts of Canada, settlers found ease in picking up their new life and making a living for themselves due to getting a good piece of land, and my ancestors were among some of the lucky settlers. On the other side of the family, well, they had it quite worse. As I said earlier, some of the land was a pain, and I'm talking rocks, trees, bad soil. It was just a nightmare. As a result of these roadblocks, they were seriously in trouble as they were forced into poverty among many of the other settlers who had received land like themselves. This poverty carried through a majority of my ancestors' lives, and well, let's just say I'm lucky that I didn't have to experience any of the stories that my parents tell me about their parents. Now you may be wondering, well, nice story about Canadian land and such, but how did it influence you? Well, let me tell you. Due to the poverty on one side and success on the other, when both sides of my family came together, I was taught many important values. For example, my dad treats me in a loving and respectful way that his father wasn't. He told me a story one time about his father where his grandfather, or as we call him Gigi, had gotten a job working night shifts at a newspaper. After a while of working there, he had accumulated a hefty amount of money and felt accomplished, but as I said, the poverty in his family taught him important lessons as his parents took the money to pay off their mortgages. Now, as terrible as that sounds, I am thankful that he passed this story down, as without it, my father may have never learned the important lessons on how to treat your children. Now, for the other side of my family, their success when settling in Canada has influenced me greatly, as it has led my grandparents and parents to take up business and finance. Growing up, their passion for business and their knowledge has fueled my own passion for business, and I plan on pursuing a career and starting my own in the future. In 1997, my parents met through a mutual friend who thought they would be perfect for each other. If not for this friend's influence, I probably wouldn't have the parents I have today, and I might not even be here. Due to this friend's influence in bringing them together, my parents got married in 1999 at the St. Charles Golf Course in Winnipeg. How cute. Years later, they had their firstborn Heath, but unfortunately, he passed away at birth. This was very hard on my parents, as one could only imagine losing their firstborn child so soon. Years later, on December 3rd, 2001, my sister Jada was born, and 2 years later, me. On June 2nd, 2003, the most influential thing happened to me as I was born. We'll get back to me later, but first let's talk about my sister's influence. Over the years, she has most likely been one of the most important influences, as she has always looked out for me, and I've learned so many important things from her. Not only by her teaching me things, but also for me watching her. I appreciate everything she's done for me, and all the things she's taught me, and everything I've learned living with her. Okay, now back to me. The first few years of my life were great, as I can tell from the photos I've seen and the stories I've heard. As my mother likes to commonly say, "You were a great child, barely ever cried, and you always seemed happy." And I can only designate that to two people, my mom and my dad. Throughout the first few years of my life, and for the rest, I am extremely lucky for the care my parents have provided to me, as some others aren't so fortunate. When born, I had two loving parents. I was born into a home that could support me, and into a life where my decisions were supported. This care has led me to learn important lessons not only by myself, but also taught to me by my parents, and I always value their decisions and advice. This is why I believe that my parents have been influencing me in great ways throughout my whole life, and it can only get better. In July 2009, my parents made the decision to move from Winnipeg, Manitoba to Summerland, BC, using the modern technology of the airplane. This modern technology was made in 1903 and has been a very large influence on me, as it did not only allow for me and my family to travel 1,900 kilometers across the country to live in Summerland, but also allows for me to connect with the rest of my family who lives in Winnipeg, Victoria, Ontario, and many other places around North America. Anyways, they made the decision to move from the large city of Winnipeg to the small town of Summerland simply for the lifestyle. Back in Winnipeg, the closest lake was Kenora, where you really couldn't have a living and be at the lake. Where Summerland, it has a lake and has amazing summers without the horrid -40 degrees that Winnipeg held in the winter. When arriving in Summerland, my parents were faced with difficulties restarting their lives and attempted to continue their careers in British Columbia. This caused them to be out a lot or simply working on building our new house, and I'm very thankful for the people who took me in and my sister in and acted as a parental figure during this time period. These two people's names were Chris and Deborah Dobbin, and they were my neighbors for the majority of the time where we lived in Summerland. After moving about 5 different times, we built a house on a lakefront property, and I would visit the Dobbins at least once a day, and typically for multiple hours, if not the whole day. To this day, I still maintain a connection with them, as I have appreciated their values and overall approach to life since I was 7. Spending mass amounts of time with them has led me to appreciate many things about life, which I may not without them, like nature, responsibility, and what leads me to my next influence, God. In Summerland, we attended the Baptist church along with many of my other friends from school. This experience has shaped my life and my life goals and values, and I commonly resort back to the Bible's teachings when faced with difficult situations. Although me and my family aren't crazy followers of Christian beliefs, I still believe many of the lessons and morals expressed in the Bible. When living in Summerland, I attended one of 3 elementary schools called Trout Creek. Here I had a great experience, as I was happy with every day of school, and I enjoyed the life it provided. Although the education I received I don't believe was the best, my childhood here was exciting, and I met a lot of great friends in my experience there. After a few years in Summerland, my parents had seen the kids that have come out of the public school system in Summerland, and let me tell you, a lot were sketchy. So knowing this, they looked for a private school in the area and found Montessori. We took a tour, and well, they closed the school down a short while later. So in need of a school that fit their needs, they heard of Aberdeen Hall. The next year, we had moved to Kelowna, and without the modern technology of the car, which became widely spread in Canada in the 1950s, I wouldn't have been able to make the move from Summerland to West Kelowna and later to Kelowna, and let's just say, it would have been a long walk. Talking about the main influences in my life, the paid promotion of this video has been a main influence in my life and still influences me to this day. FL Studio is a complete software music production environment or digital audio workstation. Representing more than 20 years of innovative development, it has everything you need in one package to compose, arrange, record, edit, mix, and master professional quality music. FL Studio is now one of the most popular DAWs and is used by the most creative artists. From my experiences with the program, I can definitely vouch it is one of the best out there. For years, I have had the opportunity to express myself through making music, and FL Studio has made this possible. It has, and music in general, been one of the most influential things in my life over the past few years and in the years before. The program is priced at $99 for the Fruit Edition, and the free trial is also available, so go check it out and maybe it'll change your life like it did mine. Anyways, back to Kelowna. On the first day of school at Aberdeen Hall, I fit in and everybody was very accepting. But I found there was one problem. I felt I was academically behind the rest of the students who had been there for years previously. So, being the competitive person I am, I worked my hardest to learn from the smartest and to shape myself into the best student that I could be. This is why I dedicate my success in school to Aberdeen Hall, as they have had a large influence on me over the years, and I can tell you now, I am that student that I always wished to be. Throughout my life, I've always loved playing sports, as I've been naturally good at them and they mostly come with ease. The many different sports I've played have all taught me different important life lessons, like a good work ethic and to always show up early. Due to these lessons, many components of my personality and work habits as a student and as a person have come from the influence of sports. All in all, many different things, people, and events have influenced me throughout my life. And as I continue on my journey, I will continue to be shaped by the things and people I surround myself with. Who knows what the future has to offer, but I know that from the influences I've had to this day, it can only continue to be amazing. Thanks for watching until the end, everybody, and I hope you learned a thing or two about history, as well as my history and things that have influenced me to make me who I am today. I'm sure you all have great stories like mine, so please drop them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. As always, thank you, Colby Course Nation, and I hope to see you back here for the next episode.